Good evening, this is DRM News with a breaking story that demands the world's attention. In a horrific act of violence, Israeli airstrikes have targeted Nasser Hospital in southern Gaza, killing at least 15 people, including 4 brave journalists who risked everything to bring the truth to light. This is not just an attack on a hospital, it's part of a chilling pattern of Israeli brutality aimed at silencing the free press. Stay with us as we unpack this tragedy and what it means for those reporting from the war zone. On Monday, Israeli forces launched what Gaza's health ministry describes as a double-tap strike on Nasser Hospital, the largest medical facility in southern Gaza. The first missile hit the hospital's 4th floor, killing Reuters contractor and cameraman Hussam al-Masri, who was broadcasting live footage to the world. As rescue workers, journalists and civilians rushed to help, a second strike hit, wounding Reuters photographer Hussam and claiming more lives. Reuters released a heartbreaking statement saying, "We are devastated to learn of the death of Hussam al-Masri and injuries to Hussam in Israeli strikes on Nasser Hospital. They are now urgently seeking medical help for Hussam and answers from both Gaza and Israeli authorities." Israel's military said in a statement, "The IDF regrets any harm to uninvolved individuals and does not target journalists as such. The IDF acts to mitigate harm to uninvolved individuals as much as possible while maintaining the safety of IDF troops." Hussam wasn't alone. 3 other journalists lost their lives. Mariam Abu Dagga, a 33-year-old freelancer who worked with the Associated Press, known for her powerful stories on starving children in Gaza. Mohammed Salama, a cameraman for Al Jazeera, and Moaz Abu Taha, who had worked with NBC. A rescue worker was also among the dead, highlighting the indiscriminate nature of this strike. The Palestinian Journalist Syndicate has condemned this attack as an open war against free media. They accuse Israel of deliberately targeting journalists to prevent the world from seeing the truth about its actions in Gaza. And the numbers are staggering. Since the war began on October 7, 2023, over 240 Palestinian journalists have been killed by Israeli forces, making this one of the deadliest conflicts for media workers in modern history. Let's be clear, journalists like Hussam, Mariam, Mohammed and Moaz were not combatants. They were armed only with cameras and microphones, stationed at Nasser Hospital because it's one of the few places in Gaza with power and internet to share their stories. Yet time and again, Israel has targeted these truth-tellers. Just 2 weeks ago, Al Jazeera's Anas al-Sharif and 4 colleagues were killed in a strike near Shifa Hospital. Israel claimed, without evidence, that Anas was a Hamas operative. Rights groups and Al Jazeera rejected this as a baseless smear. The Committee to Protect Journalists reports that at least 192 journalists have been killed in Gaza over the past 22 months, far surpassing the toll in other conflicts, like the 18 journalists killed in the Russia-Ukraine war. This isn't random. The Palestinian Journalist Syndicate calls it a deliberate campaign to terrorize and silence those exposing Israel's actions. The world is watching, but the question remains: will there be accountability? Israel's repeated strikes on hospitals and journalists, often without justification or evidence, paint a grim picture of a war not just against Hamas, but against the very truth itself. As the death toll in Gaza climbs past 62,000, according to Gaza's health ministry, the loss of these journalists means fewer voices to document the human cost. Tonight, we honour Hussam al-Masri, Mariam Abu Dagga, Mohammed Salama, and Moaz Abu Taha, heroes who paid the ultimate price to show the world what's happening in Gaza. This is DRM News, and we'll continue to follow this story. Stay informed, and let's demand justice for those who bring us the truth. In the end, we talked to Reporters Without Borders, RSF, Director General Thibaut Brutin, about this.
When and where is it going to end? Are we going to let the Israel Defense Forces continue the repeated killing of journalists? There is international law. There are guarantees that should be granted to journalists covering conflicts, and none of that seems to be applying. So we need to be very clear about the fact that none of the journalists that are allegedly terrorists are terrorists. They are professional journalists working for legacy professional media, like, for example, Reuters or, for example, AP. Principles, we might enable more protection for journalists. A suicide drone hit the 3rd floor of the hospital, and this third floor was reputedly known for being a space where journalists work. So there is already a first indication that it might have been a targeted strike. But 8 minutes after, while the emergency services and other journalists were stepping in to help, there was a second blast. So this is a very shocking situation. All these journalists are the victims of a smear campaign that is enabling the silence that sometimes we feel within the public space. So we need to side with these journalists. We need to bring responsibility back into the Netanyahu government and the practices it's allowing for the Israel Defense Forces. We need to hear international policy makers about that, and we're calling on the UN Security Council for an emergency meeting in the coming weeks